There's nothing more frustrating than spending all your time and energy and pouring love into creating the most amazing handmade product that you feel so proud of, only for you to go and take product photos and look at your photos and say, this doesn't look that great. Right? And then you don't want to necessarily have to put it online because you just feel like it doesn't show your product in the best light. So in this video, I'm going to share with you the absolute basic tools you're going to need to help you get started in taking photos of your products, because there are a lot of things that you might read online, hear from other makers and crafters in the community saying, hey, you need this, you need that. And I am here to hopefully save you a little money and give you a little reassurance about what tools you need to photograph your crafts. So if you want a really quick rundown, let's get into it. So before we get into what you actually need, let's talk a little bit about what you don't need. These are a list of things that I see people talking about and telling to other makers and crafters who are looking to improve their product photos. There's some other things that nobody really talks about, which I will mention towards the end. But a couple of things that I do see online when it comes to taking product photos is makers assuming you need to get a fancy DSLR camera with multiple lenses. You need to get, expensive studio lights. You need to get a pop-up light box, which I'll insert a photo because I feel like they're called different things, but if you see a picture of it, you'll know what I'm talking about. You don't need to download or get the most fancy photo editing app. You also don't need to be an advanced photo editor. Okay, I'm not here saying you need to get a Adobe Photoshop and use that to edit your photos. You also don't need to get a bunch of props and like all these things to take great product photos. These are things you could use. There's some things that I don't recommend using, like the pop-up light box. I think that's a complete waste of money. But the other things you can use or you can learn, but maybe at the beginning stages, it's not the most helpful for you just to get started. Those are things you could definitely invest in later on. But to get started, let's talk about what you actually need. So I can often overcomplicate things, and if you're somebody who tends to overcomplicate things, let me know in the comments below. But from learning how to take product photos and having a really complicated setup, which I'll be sure to insert a photo of one of my first setups, and it looks ridiculous. After some trial and error and realizing this is not sustainable or realistic for me to set up every time I want to take product photos. And remember, I was learning this stuff, okay? So we tend to overcomplicate things when we're learning. I realized that I actually didn't need a lot of things. And I went in with taking product photos with the intention of not having to buy anything, right? Because I wasn't gonna, buy a bunch of things and then realize, oh, I actually don't need it. So this is absolutely the basic stuff that you need to take product photos. So first, you need a camera. So that could be your smartphone, which a lot of people are using their smartphones, or you can use a point and shoot camera. You need a product. Okay, that's easy, that's obvious. You need natural light, because hey, it's free, and who doesn't like things that are free? You need a simple background and a tripod. That is absolutely the basic things you need to take product photos, and you can get really great results just with that stuff, believe me. So I'm going to dive in to each thing a little and talk a little bit about why that is all you're going to need. So let's get into it. So when it comes to your camera, I tend to keep it really simple. So I either recommend using a smartphone, so Android, iPhone, use whatever you got. Really, that's what my biggest message is to you. Use what you got and what you're comfortable using. So a lot of people are more comfortable using a smartphone than they are using a DSLR camera if they have access. DSLR cameras are great. You can get really great shots and you get a lot more control than you do with your smartphone. But there's a lot of bells and whistles and it can get really complicated and overwhelming. So if you're not looking to really utilize its full potential and all the things you can do with it, I recommend, sticking to a smartphone if this is what you're most comfortable with. A lot of makers tend to do their photos with their smartphone. You can also use a point and shoot camera, which is what I also really like using. It's definitely not as complicated as a DSLR camera, but it has some more features than using a smartphone. And you can get really great results and they're not super expensive. Now, if you're going to use your smartphone or even a point and shoot camera, this is more geared towards a smartphone. If you want to learn how to better use your camera to get really great shots, I have a free PDF download for you. I'll leave a link in the description that talks a little bit about different settings you can use and change to get really great photos of your crafts. So make sure to check the description below and download it because it's going to be super helpful in taking product photos. So in short, use what you got. Try to keep it as simple as possible. Smartphone, it can give you really great results without having to have, a lot of bells and whistles. But if you're going to use, a DSLR camera, I invite you to learn the bells and whistles so that you can use it to its full potential. So let's get into lighting. So when it comes to lighting, I generally recommend people who are starting out taking photos to use natural light. And the reason I recommend natural light is it's pretty easy to use. It's free, so if you're on a budget, that's a great price. And you also can just get really beautiful photos with it. Granted, it does have some drawbacks, such as, it makes it really hard to take photos at 10 p.m. at night if that's your thing, or it can be a little finicky depending on the time of day you take photos or with weather, right? But overall, I think it's a really great option, and in general, it's kind of like my preferred option when it comes to taking product photos because the lighting is just so beautiful. So a few tips to keep in mind when you're using natural light is to shoot in indirect sunlight. So obviously not setting up your area when the sun is directly hitting it because you might get unflattering shadows and it may make it hard to see certain details of your product. Or you can obviously you can photograph during overcast days, which will give you that nice soft lighting like indirect light will give you. So if you need more resources on how to photograph using natural light or just general lighting, I'll make sure to leave some links in the description below on how to troubleshoot common lighting problems that so many people run into, and also what to do if you don't think you have natural light in your home, which I'll give you some tips on how to figure that out and some alternatives if you really don't have great natural light in your home. So make sure you read the description below for those resources. So when it comes to product backgrounds, I encourage you to keep it as simple and distraction-free as possible. You want the focus of your product photos to be on your product and not your background. So sticking to colors like gray, browns, whites, etc., like neutral colors are really great options. You can also really think about what kind of colors you want that would reflect your brand or the overall look that you're going for. But whatever you choose, make sure it is not distracting. Stay away from busy patterns, really textured backgrounds, and also really keep in mind of just anything behind your product, right? This means, putting your shoes away, looking for dust bunnies, putting your laundry away, those types of things. Because yes, I have seen those things in product photos, and Me and potential customers really don't want to see your dirty laundry or your rundown shoes in products that we're considering buying. So make sure you pay attention to what's going on behind your product before you take your photos. So make sure you read the description for more links to tips on how to pick really great backgrounds for your products. The last thing I recommend you having is a tripod. Now, a tripod is something that I don't see a lot of makers and crafters using when it comes to taking product photos. But to me, it's a must, and it's a product that you don't have to spend a lot of money on. Or you could even find one secondhand or maybe borrow one from a friend. And the reason why you need a tripod is it's going to make taking product photos a billion times easier. Because honestly, who wants to keep picking up, putting down, picking up, putting down their phone or, your camera every time you want to take photos, right? It's really annoying, especially if you're switching out products, if you're trying to adjust things and then you're trying to adjust the framing of the shot. It's just too much work. I'm somebody who wants to not have to fiddle around with, a camera or smartphone. I want to be able to focus on the setup. I want to focus on the framing. So having a tripod is a great way to stabilize your camera or your smartphone and be able to get clear, sharp photos so you don't have to worry about getting blurry shots anymore. Plus, then you can pay attention to making those small adjustments to your setup, to your scene, whatever you're shooting, and see what it's going to look like in the shot without having to, go like this, or, you look weird probably when you're trying to adjust things. But it just makes it so much easier, leaves your hands free to focus on other things. The other thing that's really cool, and to me is like a little bonus tip, is that you can actually take photos without having to touch your camera. So using the timer on your smartphone or your camera is really a great way to take photos without actually having to touch the screen, without having to touch anything, and again, reduce getting blurry shots. So get yourself a tripod and make sure that you use it. Get one that works for your camera or your smartphone or whatever you're using, and use it. Don't let it sit in the closet. Take it out every time you're going to take product photos. So as I wrap up this video, I just want to remind you that you don't need to have a DSLR camera. You don't need to have the latest iPhone or invest in really expensive studio lights. And you don't need to be some amazing photo editor. All you need are the tools that I share within this video to help you get started. I didn't have a lot when I started learning product photography, and let me tell you, the fact that I can share with you with confidence that this is the stuff I used and I got really great results, is just, it's wild to me. It was really surprising to me. So I want to make sure that you know that this is definitely possible. If you want to learn a couple other tools that I use, which frankly are kind of funny that I use, but hey, it's not about the tools. It's about how you use them and what you do to get there. So if you want to learn more about these tools that I use and have a nice chuckle with me, I'll definitely leave a link to that video and link all the resources that I shared and mentioned in this video in the description below. And also make sure that if you're using your smartphone, that you download that PDF where I give you some great tips on how to really make the most out of your smartphone camera when you're taking product photos. So that's all for today. Make sure you hit subscribe on this channel and hit a like on the video if you really liked it, and leave a comment below and let me know, where are you when it comes to taking product photos? What are you struggling with? What is a tip that you learned from this video? I want to hear from you. So until next time, I'll see you later. Bye.